The Boys series finale has finally happened, so let's talk about not only this series finale, but season 5 as a whole. Overall, I think that this series finale was good. I think it does the job in a satisfying way, which I find in most, high quality shows that would be kind of like a worrying thing. But considering how rough the first 7 episodes of this series was, I think I'm okay with that because the first 7 episodes of this season were rough. I mean, the first episode was like promising when you had, A Train's death and his character arc kind of culminate, and you see the brewings of what this final season was going to be. I was optimistic. Seeing everybody reunite and A Train kind of sacrifice himself was great. And then leading into the next episode, you see Soldier Boy kind of come back, and we see his whole arc start there, which I think Soldier Boy in this season was handled very oddly because it felt like they brought him back for fan service and to lead this whole new Vought Rising, which, listen, Vought Rising is cool, but you cannot have an entire season, not only that being your final season of your show, pretty much be dedicated to promoting this back lore of what this future spinoff is going to be. It was never going to work in a satisfying way, and we saw that, which is because I think that led to part of this season being stale. I think Soldier Boy, for the most part, aside from when, spoilers, in the later episodes, he gives Homelander the V1, I think his role in this season was kind of unneeded and kind of just fan service overall. In episode 3, we saw Ryan kind of having his match with Homelander at the end, and they have their little confrontation, and Homelander beats him to a pulp. And like that was cool, but after that, he was kind of sidelined until the finale. And once again, we saw that they were just kind of going in random directions. And I think the next 2 episodes, where we see Homelander really go God complex crazy with all of the boys having these weird, like, bottle episodes and heart-to-heart moments, which in a vacuum I don't think were bad. The problem is you cannot have these episodes in the final season of your show. The episodes where you had the unique camera angles with the dog cam, and you had all of these little introspections into the characters' perspectives. I think they were all cool and all, but the problem is, there's 3 episodes left. What are you going to do for the rest? And that's what we was feeling in the moment. And it just kind of became this thing where the Deep was just same storyline as always, right? I can't remember his name right now, but the O Father hero, he was kind of brought in, I think last season, and he kind of felt like, the new Homelander Glazer, but he never had his own kind of origins really given. So he's around, but he's just an extension of Homelander. He didn't provide too much. And then, Firecracker, I think she had one of the more underrated arcs, especially in her episode where she, of course, died at the end. I think she was cool. And again, it was nice, but it's like, we have 3 episodes left. How can you just dedicate it all to 1 or 2 characters? And then we had the second last episode, which I thought was a pretty good episode. To a second last season, maybe, but a penultimate episode where, yes, you get Frenchie's death, which was impactful, but everything else just kind of feeling like, is this the second last episode? Like, compare that second last episode to other greats. Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, Mr. Robot, even going into, other mediums, right? A BoJack Horseman, I imagine. Attack on Titan, Code Geass, right? Like, it's like, what are we talking about here with these just lackluster build up to the finale? And now I think the most important thing to talk about, the finale. The finale of The Boys was solid. I think starting out, you have Frenchie's funeral. I think some of the monologue that Huey did, I think the writing was a little bit too jokey, but whatever, you live with that. And then after that, I thought it really was strong. Is it rushed? Yeah, but that's the whole season, right? They had to put everything in this finale. But it felt like they read this finale and then wrote the rest of the season, because this finale kind of touched on everything. We saw, starting out with the Deep, we saw his whole arc kind of finish. He was shown that he learned nothing throughout these 5 seasons, and I don't necessarily think he needed to. That's just who he was. And so we saw him pretty much get thrown in the ocean and brutally die. I think it's a fine ending. I don't think it's generational by any means. We had Sage, who honestly, throughout The Boys, and I can't remember if she was in Gen V season 2 or not, but Her role in The Boys, I liked it. You know, she was a brainiac, super smart character without being too conducive to the plot. I think they managed her pretty well, and her whole arc of she's finally stupid, I kind of enjoyed. And, you know, she's doing who knows what in Universal now. And then we had, of course, the side characters. Mother's Milk, he kind of had his whole thing, Soldier Boy, he was done with. After that, he's just kind of around to be there till the end. Of course, we saw in the kind of epilogue of this episode, he finally is back with his family, which is fantastic for him. For some reason, he's with Ryan. Don't ask me about why Ryan is tagging along, but I guess father figure kind of thing. Who knows? He needs to find somebody. And Butcher wasn't that person. Ryan's kind of arc, you know, I kind of liked the fact that he said, you know what? I wasn't there for you, Butcher, or for Homelander. I just wanted to finish the job and move on. That was nice, but I think as a whole, him being in like sections of 2 episodes of the final season, when so much of the first couple seasons revolved around him, actually, he was like Butcher's main goal besides Homelander in the first 3 seasons. Sideline that much, I don't get it. But we saw that. Listen, the Gen V characters, everything with Gen V just didn't work, and it's unfortunate. I think it largely started with one of the main characters dying in real life prior to season 2. That didn't help. Then Gen V was canceled, and then you're just kind of sitting here like, we don't know where to fit them, and they didn't. But, you know, what can you do? They wasted it a little bit. You move on. They had their little moments. They're going to Canada. Cool. And then we have Annie and Kimiko. I want to touch on Kimiko. We saw she had her final moment of she was in Paris after, of course, doing the most important job, arguably, as in she has a Soldier Boy power, but instead she gets to remove heroes' powers. She came up clutch against Homelander. You know, some people don't like the fact that she's the one to kind of do it, but at the end of the day, she didn't defeat Homelander. Butcher did. So I'm okay with it. She gets to go to France the way Frenchie said that she and her would. And, you know, she's living her life. That's nice. And then we have the 2 most important characters, Hughie and Butcher. Starting out with Butcher, we saw that it was kind of predictable in the sense that the boys pushed so many boundaries early on that pushing more boundaries is hard. And so this was kind of always in the realm of like, people could predict that. And so it was kind of predictable, but it was satisfying. We saw him finally get his get back on Homelander, for Becca, for everyone in between. He killed them after Homelander obviously was debased, and seeing Homelander down there, Anthony Starr's generational actor, seeing him go from big all ego to please, I'll do anything, begging on his knees for Butcher to spare him, that was awesome. It was nice to see Homelander once again just getting beaten down and then murdered brutally by Butcher and him being satisfied. Shout out to Anthony Starr. You have one of the greatest performances in any role ever. I'm going to say it. And he became the focal point of the show. I think to low-key the point's detriment. I think the boys kind of became so much about Homelander, which I know it kind of always was supposed to. But in the show, I don't know about the comics, but it felt like it started to become too much reliant on him. But Anthony Starr carried, whether it was good writing or bad writing or rushed or slow, he carried it all. And I love Anthony Starr's Homelander. And then, of course, we have Butcher getting mad after his dog passes. He realizes he kind of has nothing left, and he just wants to kill all soups. And we have, who is the other most important character, Hughie. Finally, they have their final matchup kind of as a mirror to season 1, and Butcher, he's about to press it, then decides not to. Hughie kills him. Butcher says, you know what, I'm going to save him from knowing that I wasn't going to press it. He did it. Butcher dies, and Hughie finally has a satisfying result of, at the start, his woman dies, and he joins the boys to kill Homelander and end Vought, and the evil, I should say, but mainly Homelander. And he ends up at this similar video store. He has his woman. This time she's alive, and he's happy to live ever after. And overall, I'm satisfied. I think The Boys, those first 3 seasons, are some of my favorite seasons of television. Not just superhero television, television. I think in season 4, it started to teeter, and in season 5, early on, they really didn't know what the hell they were doing. But ultimately speaking, they stuck the finale enough considering how rough it was looking. I will always be a fan of The Boys. It's one of the most clippable shows, kind of like Family Guy, oddly, where there's just so many clips that I will go back and watch. And it's just a generational show. I'll always appreciate it. It kind of proved in season 4, especially in that season 5 mark with the rushed pacing and the what are we doing, that it would never end up being one of the all-time greats, but it'll always be an all-time favorite. And sometimes that's okay. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought about this, not only the show, but the season, series, everything in between, and I'll see you guys later.